And what this is doing is expanding on the previous workflow that we have with Dify. With Dify, you might see that we just had a knowledge base of a couple of PDF documents, but there might be scenarios where you might want to have questions that are not covered in the knowledge base, and you might want to use web search for that. Or maybe there are queries that are totally like related to the current context and not at all related to what we have in the knowledge base, and you would probably want to use web search entirely for those scenarios. In here, a user pass in a queries, a router decide which of these two is the right tool based on a prompt and based on the user query, and then combines the results if it needs to, and also updates the memory of the system. Most of these workflows or agentic systems have this notion of memory, where the LLM or the decision tool that you're using or the reasoning model that you're using can look back at what has happened before and take that into context apart from what is retrieving from archive or the web search to answer the question. The first step is, this is like the router prompt. So when the user asks a question, it decides based on this prompt whether this should go to web or this should go to the knowledge base that we have. And then based on that, as we saw in this graph, as I showed earlier, that this router based on that prompt decides which one to choose. And then once we have selected that, there is this archive processor, which all it's doing is the PDF documents that we are providing this archive loader. As you'll see, this archive processor is loading these documents as PDF. In our case, we're just providing it one PDF, but you can see that it created 35 chunks out of that PDF. Once you have converted your text documents or your PDFs and you have loaded them into a vector database, and then you also have your router node set up, you can also set up your web search node, for which, as I mentioned earlier, we are using Tavily. There are some Tavily specific configurations that we are setting here, like how many results to retrieve. Should we look at only specific domains to search for user query or not? Once we have our archive or our knowledge base and our web search set up, the next thing is combining the results or synthesizing the result. You can think about this as the post-processing. Once you retrieve the raw results from your knowledge base or web search, you might want to do some kind of post-processing on those results, and you can provide all sorts of custom logic here. And then the other piece which we are defining here is the memory component. My intent here is to not go into the very specifics of implementation on a one specific library, but to give you like an overall idea about what the workflow looks like. So basically, we define the memory, and then so that the agent or the system can recall what has happened before. And then here we connect all the different components that we define. So we define the router, archive, web search, memory, and all of that. And then this kind of workflow is set up here. And then we can ask it a question, and hopefully it will be able to answer this. As you can see here, the research paper that I passed in is specific to software engineering. And I'm asking, let's say, hey, explain software refactoring. And then the first thing that it does, it says that, oh, this looks like knowledge-based specific question, so I should refer to archive. And then this is a threshold that we have set, but you can also play around with this threshold. And then based on this threshold, it says that I found 5 relevant chunks from my knowledge base or from my vector store that I think are relevant to the question and have a similarity score, a threshold score more than 0.5. And these are basically some of the chunks. And then using the chunks and the question that I've asked, it provides some answer here.